Okay, welcome to this special recording of how to do subject analysis. I am doing the video even though it makes me uncomfortable because I'm going to show you some things that are different than how I've done it. So what's on the screen right now is the second example in your assignment. I thought I'd go over this one because it seemed to be the one that was most challenging for everybody, and hopefully by the end of this recording you'll have a better understanding of how things are supposed to be cataloged, what you're supposed to do with the data, the different punctuation, how it's supposed to be laid out, how to do subject analysis and create Dewey numbers and work marks. I did have one person send in some questions, so I'm going to hopefully cover all of the things that she requested. That was Melanie. I haven't heard from anybody else, so I was hoping if you had some specific questions you could let me know and I'd cover them here. If not, go ahead and email them to me and I'll just have to reply back in email. Okay, let's just go ahead. So here's the information that you were given. Now normally we would be cataloging with the item in hand. This is not a real item. None of the examples that I gave you are real items. I made it all up because I didn't want you to go out there and look for records. I wanted you to do the work. So this is all the information that we would find on the title page or somewhere else in the resource. Just a reminder that when you are cataloging, there's a chief source of information, and for books, that chief source where we want to go to first to get our information is the title page and the verso of the title page, and that the information we take from that for the title and statement of responsibility is transcribed information, and that means that you need to copy it exactly how it is on the page. That includes any mistakes that might be in there. Basically, the reason why we have it as transcribed information is because somebody looking at the record later in order to do copy cataloging or something like that is going to be comparing that information to what they have in hand. And that will help them know if there's any discrepancies, that there are actually discrepancies. It's not just that somebody forgot to put something in or somebody, fixed this misspelling. If there's a misspelling, if there's a typo, it needs to be put into the title and statement of responsibility area. So that's why it's transcribed. So I'm just going to go down from the beginning of the record all the way to the bottom, working through this information and show you exactly how to do cataloging, the decisions that you make, the things that you're going to encounter and are going to have to deal with. So on the title page we have the title and then information about who it was written by, and then that photography was done by Jennifer O'Toole. So I'm going to start out with what the main entry for this resource would be. This is not the Constitution. It's a book about the Constitution, and it's a book that has been written by, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 authors. Now, what comes into play at this point is the rule of 3. Do you remember what the rule of 3 is when it comes to the statement of responsibility? The rule of 3 is applied when you're cataloging using AACR2, and it's not applied when or it doesn't have to be applied when you're cataloging according to RDA. So under RDA, we could go ahead and include all of these names in the statement of responsibility, but we would still have to select one for the main entry. So I'm going to select the first name, James Wilson. I'm going to enter him in with the last name first, and then James and a period. Period comes at the end of every field. And this is our first field. So then I'm going to go to the next line and indent, if you'll remember that we indent for the title and statement of responsibility. And I'm just going to type it in as it is here on the page, and actually because this is in Word, I can just copy it. But I need to be very careful about this because there's some things that I need to change. According to AACR2, we capitalize using sentence case. And that means that we're going to capitalize the first word like you would in a sentence, and then we're going to capitalize any other proper nouns. Other than that, nothing else is capitalized. So I'm going to lowercase the I in front of its, the S in front of substance, and the M in front of meaning. I'm going to keep Constitution capitalized because Constitution is the title of the U.S. Constitution. So I'm going to keep that capitalized. If it was lowercase, it would be applying to any Constitution. So we're going to uppercase it. Now there's one other thing that I need to do to this title. Can you see what it is? This is why I would prefer a class to do this, because I think we could learn from each other. So I'm going to ask these questions and hope that you're thinking and kind of following along and trying to respond. So what would be the other thing that I would need to do for this title and statement of responsibility? We have a title proper, which is America's Constitution, and then we have a subtitle, its substance and meaning. And we separate the title proper from the subtitle with a space, colon, space. So I have a colon there, but I need to put a space in front of it. Now, this is ISBD punctuation. I think sometimes people think that catalog records are odd creatures. They've never encountered them before. They don't know what to do with them. But I think it might be helpful if you think of a catalog record as simply another way of citing something. So all along in this course, I've been asking you to cite things that you read. And the reason I've done that, first of all, is because I want you to indicate to me what you've been reading, but also so that you could get in the habit of following rules for displaying information about a resource. It was quite intentional on my part. I wanted you to know how to formulate a citation correctly according to a certain format, because that would then get you in the mode of thinking for having to do the same thing in a catalog record. So this is just basically, in a way, citing a resource according to the rules of AACR2. So if you can think of it that way, then hopefully all of this punctuation oddity will kind of, if not make sense to you, at least be reasonable. So after the title, we need to have the statement of responsibility. And do you remember what we need before the statement of responsibility? We need some punctuation that will indicate that the statement of responsibility is coming up, and that is hopefully you're all saying it, it's a forward slash. So space, forward slash, space. And then I'm going to put in the statement of responsibility. Now, if I go back to my title page, it says written by James, Eleanor, etc. So what of that do you include? Well, I could include everything. I could include written by James, or I could just include by James. And either one would have been correct. I would have accepted it either way. I'm going to just select by James. And I'm just selecting James because, as I mentioned earlier, we have the rule of 3 that comes into play. If I had just 3 authors here, I would include all of their names. But I have 5. And so that we can save space on a card, if we were typing this on a card, I can only include one name, and then I replace the rest of it with et al. Okay, so I'm going to do a space, dot, 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 space, a bracket, open bracket, oops, et al, all with a period at the end and a closed bracket. And that is my statement of responsibility. Then I'm going to do space, dash, dash, space, because I'm going to enter in the next area in my cataloging record. And so I'm going to go back up to my resource. Oh, no, before I do that, I have some other information that I want to also include in my statement of responsibility, because we have another person who's been responsible for something in the creation of this work, and that is Jennifer O'Toole, photography by Jennifer O'Toole. Now I'm going to include her name in here because she's on the title page, and that's important, it's significant, and it helps the next person coming along to be able to find this resource and recognize that it's a match. If her name was not on the title page, for instance, on the verso of the title page it said photography credits by Jennifer O'Toole, I probably would not include it in the statement of responsibility, because the statement of responsibility is supposed to be transcribed from the title page. So that's on the verso, I'm not going to include it. But it is on the title page, and so I'm going to separate our author from our photographer with a space, semicolon, space, and then type actually all the information so that I can distinguish what Jennifer O'Toole has done from what James has done. And so I'm going to type in photography by Jennifer O'Toole. And actually I could, since I'm putting in photography, I'm going to put in written. Okay, so we've got all of that information in here. Now you may be wondering, why did I include Jennifer O'Toole? That's yet another person, and I replaced the other people with the et al. And that is because Jennifer is responsible for a different part of the work than James et al. And so the rule of three comes into play for every group of people who have done similar have the similar responsibility for the work. So for instance, say we have a DVD and there are multiple people involved in creating videos and movies. Even if we had a CD, multiple people involved in recording and producing music. There may be more than one person involved in a certain aspect of that. But if there are multiple people involved in different aspects, you are going to include all of their names, not do et al. So if we had a composer and a conductor and two soloists, we would include all of their names, even though that's 4 people total. If all that information was on our chief source of information, we would include all of it, because they all do different aspects of contributing to the work. Okay. I always like to ask if there's any questions as we go along, but since you can't respond right now, how about if you have any questions as you go along, go ahead and write them down and send me an email. Okay, so I'm going to separate this next piece of information with that space, dash space. Going back to the work in hand, we see the next information is the publishing information, the dates it was published. Oh, but we have this information that says Second American Edition, and the edition statement comes next, if there is an edition statement. So we're going to put the edition statement in now. According to AACR2, we don't just type that out. RDA would let us just, copy Second American Edition just like it is and paste it in there. But AACR2 is concerned about space issues, so we are going to change the word second to the ordinal, to ND, and my word processing wants to automatically change this to a super case, but I'm not going to do that in cataloging. So Second American Ed, and edition is always abbreviated in AACR2. So we are taking care of the edition statement. Now, we do not put a date in this field. The date does not go in the edition statement field. The date goes in the publication information. So I'm going to separate this information with a space, dash space, and start putting in the publishing information. And that comes in the same order, actually, that it comes in citations: the place of publication, the publisher, and then the date. So we know that the place of publication is San Diego, California. And I'm going to separate, actually I'll put in California. Whether you put in the state or not, it just depends on whether you think somebody's going to know which San Diego you mean. Usually if it's New York, it's just New York, not New York, New York. But if it's not a real well-known city, you might be helpful to put the abbreviation for the state. All right, we're going to separate that with a space, colon, space, and then put in the publisher, and it's HarperCollins, and I'm going to, again, this is kind of sort of transcribed. You don't have to, if it was HarperCollins and Sons, I wouldn't need to add and Sons, but I am going to represent HarperCollins the way it's represented on the title page. So it's one word, and I'm going to keep it that way. Again, it's so that somebody searching for HarperCollins as one word will find this. Somebody copy cataloging will look at it and say, oh, my HarperCollins is 2 words. This might not be the same resource. Okay, HarperCollins and then a comma, and we've got 2 dates here. What do I do with 2 dates? And I'm not sure actually if beginning cataloging covers this. I didn't count any of you off for however you did this. Unless you didn't represent the most recent date. And that's really important because we have 2 dates, one published in 1997, and then the second American edition was published in 2005. If I was to just put down here 1997, that would be inaccurately representing what I have. This particular edition was not published in 1997. The second edition was, the first edition was published in 1997. I have the second edition. So there's 2 ways I can deal with this. I can either put both dates here, which I would probably not do since they're both publication dates. However, if the first date was a copyright date, I would put the copyright date here, and I'd put a little C in front of it. The little C stands for copyright. And that differentiates this first date as a copyright date from the second date as a publishing date. But this is not a copyright date. So I'm not going to include that here. I'll get rid of that. But I can still indicate it in my cataloging, and I'll show you how to do that. So that's the publishing information. And now I'm going to go to area 3 and indicate the extent. Okay, I've got some information here, some preface pages 1 through 11, and then chapters 1 through 7 start on pages 1 through 129. I was very intentional about putting it this way because I wanted you to see the extent. In this case, the bulk of the work, chapters 1 through 7, are 129 pages long. But in addition to that, we have some prefatory material, 11 pages of prefatory material. That is somewhat significant. It's almost 20% of the work. So I need to indicate that we have 2 sets of pagination, 2 sections here, and the bulk of both sections make up the full extent. If I just put down 129 pages, that would actually be inaccurate because there's actually 140 pages. So I need to put down the full extent, and so 140, yeah. So we have, I'm going to put the Roman numerals first, not because Roman numerals come first. I'm going to put the section of paging in as it's represented in the text. Okay, well, it's good that I can pause these so I can tend to my ringing phone and take care of what I needed to take care of. But now I don't really remember where I was, so hopefully I won't be repeating myself a whole lot. So we're going to record the extent. So I'm going to put in 11. Oh, that's right. Roman numerals don't come first just because they're Roman. They come first because that section is first. So I'm going to put 11 in Roman numerals because I'm going to represent it how it's represented in the work. Unfortunately, Word automatically capitalizes it, so I have to make it lowercase again. And then I'm going to put in the last page of the next section, which is 129. And we're going to represent that by an abbreviated pages, so P for pages. And that's the extent. Now, the next part of it is whether it has illustrations or music or something like that in it. And we know by the statement of responsibility that Jennifer O'Toole did the photography in it, and it also has this note that says includes photographs of historic, etc. So I'm going to put a space, colon, space, and then the proper term to use here is illustrations, but abbreviated ILL. Sorry. Okay, the next information after here would be the size, and I didn't give you the size. So we're just going to leave it at that, and that's good. We're done with the extent now, and so I have options to put notes in here. And there are a variety of notes I could put in, but I've been given the table of contents, so I definitely am going to add the table of contents. I'm not going to include the label table of contents because you don't need to include a label. And I'll just copy that and put it, indent this again. Each area is indented. Okay, so that's the contents. And I'm going to, I could include this as a note or not. It just depends on whether you think your users might be interested in photographs of historic and nationally significant buildings in DC, Boston, and Philadelphia. I'm going to not put it in. But the last part I want to put in is the ISBN, area 8. And so it's going to be ISBN. And there's two ISBNs here, you'll notice. Now, let me copy them and then I'll talk a little bit about them. Oops, so I'm going to copy all of that and then copy the next one. And I think I could have done it with the and. Actually, I will do it that way. Okay, so all right, so I have the ISBNs. Actually, let me copy this down here because I want you to see something. Oh, goodness. All right. You'll notice that the length of each of them is different. The first one we have is the ISBN that's 13 characters long, and then the second one is 10 characters long. But take a look. The first 3 digits are 978, and that's what a 13-digit ISBN will have. After that, then, the digits are exactly the same. 4358, 784, 784, 7676. It's only this last digit that's different, 0 and 2. And the reason that's different is because this is what we call a check digit. And there's an algorithm actually that goes to these numbers so that you run these numbers through this algorithm, and if the last number is correct, then it's a correct ISBN. If the last number is not, then it's not a correct ISBN. So we can't simply take a 13-digit ISBN, copy off the last 10 digits, and call it the 10-digit ISBN, because that check character is going to be different because we no longer have the 978. So you need to make sure that you're copying the number exactly as it is in the resource. So that's our 2 ISBNs. I'll go back here. All right. All right, I think I'm done with the descriptive part of the resource. Again, if any of this is confusing to you, just send me an email. I tried to explain where I think some of the problems were. So now we need to add a Dewey number. And I'm going to just do that here. Okay, so I'm going to bring this, first of all, before we add a Dewey number, oh no, sorry, I forgot. We need the, hang on. Okay, I need to put the subjects headings in and the added entries. So subject headings in a ISBD descriptive format, which is what we're using here, start with Arabic numbers. So I'm going to put at least one subject heading in. Now, before I do that, I want to talk about subject analysis, because this was not clear, and I want to make sure that that you understand how to do subject analysis. So let me bring up the slide. There's 3 slides in particular that I want to show, so I'll bring that up. The first one is this one that talks about subject analysis. So we talk about the aboutness of a resource. When we do subject analysis of a resource, we aren't looking for keywords or, gee, this talks a little bit about this. We're looking at the whole work and asking the question, what is this work about? So it not only is what is this about, but then what perspective is this from? And the reason why we ask about perspective is because we want to place the resource, see, point number 2, we want to place the resource in the collection in the appropriate discipline. And remember, Dewey is broken up by disciplines. Each 100 range, each hundreds range is a different discipline. So we need to figure out what discipline. So let me see if I can explain this. Say we have a book about wheat, for instance, wheat, the plant wheat, where we get flour from. So we need to know, is the book talking about wheat in the sense of it being a grass, a type of grass in the realm of grasses? Is it talking about wheat as an agricultural crop, or is it talking about wheat in terms of being able to cook or bake with it? So each one of those things would determine which discipline it was put in. The wheat, the book about wheat as another grass, is going to be in the science area, because it's going to be talking about wheat as a part of the family of grasses and other plants, you know, prairie plants, that sort of thing. If we're talking about wheat as an agricultural crop, it's going to be in the technology area, perhaps, talking about how to plant wheat, how to get the most growth out of it, or it could be in the environmental area, talking about the effects of wheat crops on the soil, the pesticides and fertilizers that need to be added that impact the environmental area. Finally, talking about wheat as a crop, as a grain to use in, to be ground down into flour, to be used in various cooking products, would probably be in technology under cooking or processing wheat for flour. So it's really, the discipline that it's going into is really important. And we'll see that in a minute with our work. You also want to, point number 3, place it with other resources that are on the same, that it's similar to. And again, this goes back to the discipline part of it. So that part of subject analysis is really important to understand the aboutness and what is the focus here, what is the perspective, what is the message that's trying to be communicated by the author. Okay, our next slide that I want to show you is the one on the principles of subject, subject headings. So you might want to pause this and write these down, because this will be very helpful to whenever you're doing subject analysis to figure out a subject heading or a classification number. These are the principles that you follow. So first of all, you're going to assign the most specific headings. And remember, I talked about dogs. If you have a book about one dog and that dog happens to be a German Shepherd, your subject heading is not going to be dogs. It's not going to be mammals. It's not going to be, animals. It's going to be German Shepherds, because the book is about a German Shepherd. Unless you have a book that's about a variety of dogs, and then you can go up the hierarchy to dogs and assign that subject heading. But if the book is all about dogs, you would not assign the subject heading mammals, because mammals incorporate a wide variety of animals, including dogs. And that would just, if somebody was searching for dogs and they did, typed in the word dogs and they didn't get this book, they would be missing a resource, because that's what the book is about. So you need to be as specific as possible with the subject headings you assign. And you need to assign as many headings as needed to represent the subject content of the work. Now this can be taken to an extreme, and it goes back to the aboutness. Just because a resource may have some information about something, if it's not, that something isn't about what the bulk of the work is about, then you're not going to assign a subject heading for it. So let's say we were doing, I should have thought of these examples beforehand. Let's say we were, we had a work on gardening vegetable gardening. And part of the work was talking about some of the pests that can invade the garden, but there wasn't even a whole chapter on it, or there might have been a whole chapter on it, but the bulk was about really gardening vegetables, so planting raised beds, fertilizing, how to mulch correctly, how to weed, what plants work in what areas better. It was all about the whole of gardening. Well, we wouldn't necessarily want to pull out a subject heading for pest control, because it's really not about pest control. It's about gardening and the whole. So you'd want to use the term, the subject heading gardening and not pest control. But if we had a work about gardening and one of the major focuses on it was pest control, so gardening vegetables, and there's a couple chapters on natural pest controls. There's a couple other chapters on pesticides for pest control, and then you've got some chapters on the environmental impact of pest controls. That is a significant aspect of this book, and so you definitely would want to bring that out in the subject headings. So you really have to ask yourself again, what is this book about? What is the bulk of the information about? Is it just one thing? Is the focus on one thing, or is the focus on a couple things about that one thing? Again, keep bias out. and assign subdivisions as appropriate to bring out other aspect of the work. And I really didn't get into this because it's a harder part of assigning subject headings, but do be aware that subdivisions bring out aspects. So for instance, say we are talking about ballroom dancing, and the book is about ballroom dancing, and they're showing different sorts of dancing and sort of how they've where they come from, their cultural backgrounds, some of the historic dynamics of the dances. You could have a subject heading ballroom dances and then subdivide that by the term history, because it's bringing out the historic aspect of the dance. And it's a major piece of the focus of the work is the historic aspect of the dancing. So that's when a subdivision would come in handy. Or say it was about a dance that was originated in the 17th century, and it's talking about its origins and how it developed and the main principles involved in it. Then you're going to probably want to have a chronological subdivision for the 17th century to bring out that aspect of it. Other subdivisions that we use often are whether a work is fiction. Now, we never add a subdivision of nonfiction. If a work is about gardening, it's about gardening. But if it's a fiction work about gardening, then we put that subdivision of fiction, or for juvenile works, we put juvenile fiction or juvenile literature, just to bring out that, that different aspect of the work. And then a helpful thing to do is check your catalog and see how other works that are talking about the same topic have been classified and what subject headings have been used. Again, going back to that last slide, the aboutness, you want to make sure that your research sources are found by your users and are in the best places for the users. And so it would be wise to go to your catalog and see how have all these other similar works been treated. Now, you don't have to do that for everything. It is helpful to do it when you're first starting out and you are learning your collection. But once you've kind of got a sense of how your collection is laid out, you don't really need to do it all that much for works that you're familiar with. So I hope that helps with understanding how to assign subject headings. I didn't want you to do a whole lot of work in this area. I just wanted you to be able to find at least one subject heading that would be appropriate for these works. They're not complex works, so they didn't really need a whole lot of subject headings added. And then let's, I'll get back to the next part later. Okay. So, subject headings. Let's go to the Library of Congress authorities. I've been out of this long enough, it's gonna, oh, maybe not. Okay, so let's go back to this work. Let's take a look at it again. Okay, the title is America's Constitution, its substance and meaning. Now, we don't just get an idea of the aboutness from the title. There's a variety of places, and we don't have the work in hand to look at, so I don't have a, it's not a real work in hand, but anyway, I don't have a blurb to read about it. If it had a dust jacket on it, I'd be able to read the flaps, or if it had a blurb on the back, I could read that to get an idea of its aboutness. But what I do have is a title, and in this case, the title seems to be helpful. I take a look at the table of contents also for getting the aboutness. So let's take a look at this. It's called The Birth of a Nation. How Thomas Jefferson Discovered America's Great Success Formula, The Miracle at Philadelphia. So the birth of a nation, obviously it's talking about the beginnings of the United States, and the Constitution is part of those beginnings. How Thomas Jefferson Discovered America's Great Success Formula is probably talking about, he wrote the Declaration of Independence, what his thoughts were that he put into that, and what his philosophy was in terms of this this document, this Constitution, being formed, and how the government, how the Constitution will help guide the development of the government and how that will work. The miracle at Philadelphia is probably talking about the Congress that met and how they worked out the Constitution. Again, the founders' formula. Then we've got the next three are talking about the different branches of government. The states delegate 20 powers to Congress, so that's the legislative. The most powerful political office in the world, the presidency of the United States, that's the executive branch. And then the U.S. Supreme Court, guardian of the Constitution, so that's the judicial. And these are all talking about, well, I think it's talking about perhaps the founders' formula of the balance of powers, but then the different roles that these different powers play in upholding the Constitution. Remember, our title is America's Constitution, so these three chapters are talking about the different powers that and their relationship to the Constitution. So I think we can at first off say this book is about the Constitution. Now, is it about the history of America? A little bit, but that's not its focus. Its focus is the Constitution, and the Constitution is a historical aspect of our country, but I don't think this book is really focusing on the history of America outside of the Constitution. Is it about the presidency of the United States? Well, only as that power relates to the Constitution. Okay, same with the Congress and with the Supreme Court. It's only about those in terms of how they relate to the Constitution. In fact, the last chapter, the U.S. Supreme Court, guardian of the Constitution, it's expressly telling you what the role that the U.S. Supreme Court plays in keeping the Constitution as a viable document. So, would we want to bring out in our subject headings these different executive, judicial, legislative branches? Well, let's see. We need to talk about how extensive these chapters are in relationship to the whole work. So we have 7 chapters, seven chapter titles here, and in 129 pages. So if I get my calculator out, well, I don't even need my calculator. Let's do 20%. I'll get my calculator. I know 10% is going to be like 13. So let's do 129 times 20%. 25 or 26 pages is how long a chapter would need to be significant enough to warrant a subject heading, or not just a chapter, but the topic of a section of the work to warrant a subject heading. 25 or 26 pages. Now we have 7 chapters divided into 129 is 18. So each of these chapters we can say averages about 18. Now if we actually had a book in hand, we could, grab the pages for a certain chapter and hold them together and see if that was a significant enough section compared to the rest of the pages left over to be about 20%. But in this case, we're going to do the math, and we don't, with 18 pages per chapter, we don't have enough to warrant a subject heading for each of these chapters. But I do think this formula, the balance of powers, just in my knowledge of the Constitution and the government and the roles that those entities play, I know that that's an important aspect of the Constitution, and there's 3 chapters on them. So if we actually have 3 chapters on the balance of powers, that's let's see, 18 times 3, that's 54, which is definitely a significant part of the book. So I think I want a subject heading for the Constitution, and then I probably want another subject heading for the idea of the balance of powers. So then let's go to our Library of Congress authorities. Now, this is the challenge. We do have a keyword authorities that we can search. So we could highlight keyword authorities and search. I'm going to, well, let's just try America and Constitution. Constitution. Oh, I knew it would do this. It timed out. It's thinking. It's been up here too long. Okay, I'm going to pause it till it comes up. Okay, we're back. All right, so I'm going to click on authorities and do keyword America Constitution. And, you know, just looking, well, actually, I've got some headings here. Now, if you notice, I'm going to go back. I have different options for searching in the authorities database. I have subject, name, title, and I did a keyword authority search. So that means it could have brought up any of these, subject, name, title, or name, title. So this is what I got. It's not David Borden. I know that's not it. Central America, no. Confederate States of America Constitution. Oh, well, that's kind of getting close, but not. Some other constitutions down here. United States Constitution for the United States of America. If I look over to the right, it says Library of Congress subject heading. We're looking for an LC annotated subject heading because these are children's works. But if I look to the left, it says references. Well, this button might take me to something that might be helpful. So I'm going to click on references, and it's giving me this heading, see United States Constitution, Korean and English. That's interesting. I don't think my work is in English or is in Korean. So I'm going to go to the authority record for that, see if that helps me out. Well, not really. So, but I'm going to use this United States Constitution to see if I can find that searching in subjects. And it's right at the top here, United States Constitution. It's got an authorized heading button next to it, but this is a Library of Congress subject heading. I'm looking for the LC annotated, and there it is, LC annotated children's catalog subject heading. It's not going to have a button because the children's headings don't. What I'm looking for is this, the type of heading, LC annotated children's catalog subject heading, and it is United States Constitution. So I'm going to add that to as my first and let me take a look at that. It's just like that. Now if I look in here, will this show it? No. Okay. I'm going to separate the main subject heading from the subdivision of Constitution. Now, if you had put this in without the separation, I wouldn't have counted you off. So I know that this is going to be my first subject heading because the whole work is about the United States Constitution, and I want the most important heading to be at the top because the Dewey number that I find is going to need to correlate with that first subject heading. Okay, I'm going to do another search to see if I can find a subject heading for something having to do with the balance of powers or the executive branch or something like that, because I want to bring that aspect out. So I'm going to do new search. I'm going to do it in the subject authority search. So we'll do separation of powers. Separation of powers. Or branches. Let's do branches of powers. Branches of power. I don't know if this will give me anything. No. Branches. Nope. Okay. So let's try executive. I'm going to try one of the powers. Executive power. Oh, I have one. Oh, and it is an LC annotated children's catalog subject heading. So I could use executive power. I only have 3 branches here. I could see if the other 2 had something and use all 3. Or I could decide, well, it's about 3, so maybe I can find a subject heading that covers all 3 of them. So I don't know what I want to do yet, but there's this button I'm going to look at. They're the same thing, executive power, but Library of Congress subject headings has the hierarchy included in it. So I want to take a look at that. Now, when I click on that button, I have a link then to go right to the authority record for that subject heading. But I'm also given a list of narrower terms. And let's see, yeah, nothing really. Oh, there is this one down here that says see also separation of powers. I kind of like that. So I'm going to go to separation of powers. Oh, this is also an LC annotated children's catalog subject heading. Okay. Could I use maybe separation of powers and then bring out all the different ones? It depends. If it's part of the hierarchy, so if you had a book about German Shepherds and Border Collies and you did German Shepherd, Border Collies for subject headings, could you also have dogs? And I would say no, because they are in a hierarchy. Dogs are a higher level than the different breeds of dogs. Is separation of powers a higher level than the different branches? Well, let me see. So I have, again, narrower terms, and I have other terms that I can look for. And these, it says see also. So that means that in addition to separation of powers, I can use, here's a term, delegation of powers. I can use executive power, judicial power, legislative power. So I have some choices here. I can just use those 3 different branches, which is how I think I will go, because I'm not sure if this book is talking necessarily about separation of powers or if it's talking about delegation of powers. It may be talking about both. And I don't want to get too many in here that are going to make it kind of mucky. So I'm just going to use executive power, judicial power, and legislative power for my subject headings. Okay. So we'll do this way, and it doesn't matter whatever order because they're equal here. Executive power, judicial power, and legislative power. Let's see. And yeah, they're all going to be children's. I can check that. Just put them in there first. Judicial power. It's a children's and legislative power. And it's not a children's subject heading. So you have a choice here. You can decide that you're going to make it, you're going to use it anyway, and you can do that in your own catalog. Or you could go back to using either separation of powers or delegation of powers. I'm going to look in legislative power. This is the authority record for it. It says under names of individual, let's see. I can use the subdivision powers and duties under names of individual legislative bodies, United States Congress powers and duties. So I could use that, see if that's a children's subject heading. I kind of think not. We're getting a little too detailed, and I'm just going to go with legislative power. And I might consider adding delegation of powers. But I'm just going to leave it like that for now. Okay. Now I'm going to add some added entries because I know my main entry is James Wilson, and so the title needs to be an added entry, and I have to indicate that here in second level cataloging. But am I going to do any other added entries? Let's see. So let's take a look. I've got James Wilson. I can't add the rest of the names because I exchanged them for et al. But I do have Jennifer O'Toole here. So I'm going to include her. We'll do I don't know that there's any particular order to these things. So O'Toole. And then Roman numeral 2 for title. Okay, so I have an added entry for O'Toole, the photographer, and an added entry for title. And that is my record. Now I need to add my Dewey and my Cutter. So I'm going to go down here for Dewey, and we're going to take a look at Dewey info. Okay, here's your 10 main classes. You can click on each of these to drill down. To some of you on your comments, I said you need to drill down a little bit more. Let's go back to gardening. I had a book on gardening. No, that's a bad one. Let's say I had a book on the grasses, wheat being a grass. I could go to science, but if I just put 500, that would give me everything that science was about. And if I click on that, I'll see it's broken up into 9. Remember, the Dewey system, it's about tens. So there are 10 main classes. See the 10 main classes, and then you go into one of those classes and it will be broken down into 10 subclasses. And all these subclasses: science, math, astronomy, physics, chemistry, earth sciences and geology, fossils and prehistoric life, biology, plants, animals. So I would definitely want to make it more narrow and start drilling down to see if I could get all the way to wheat. But in this case, we're talking about the Constitution. Our first subject heading is the United States Constitution. So we need to figure out where that's going to be. Now, a lot of you put history and a history number. So let's do that. Let's go to history. If I click on history, where will it go? Not geography and travel, not biography. It's not the ancient world, Europe, Asia, Africa, North America. So it'll be the history. If we're going to talk about the United States, it'll be North America. So that's going to be 9-7. When we click on that, we've got North America is made up of Canada, Mexico, Central America, blah, 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 and the United States. So we're going to go to United States, which is 973. But that's still quite broad. We're just talking about a very narrow aspect of the history of the United States. So let's see if we can find that here. None of these. Oh, I do see something that says constitutional period. Oh, that's looking promising. Let's click on that. And then we have the administration of different presidents as well as a war. Okay. Now I know that the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776, but I'm not quite sure when the Constitution was. So I know that the book talks about Thomas Jefferson, so I could possibly go to the administration of Thomas Jefferson, and then this is for the number that would be used for Thomas Jefferson. So I could put it in 973.46. But do bear in mind that that would be under all the other books that are about the administration of Thomas Jefferson. Is that really helpful for where the Constitution might go? Depending on your catalog and your collection, you'd have to make that decision. I want to see if there's a better number. I don't think that's really the best number that I want to put it in. But where would it go? Is it going to go in computer science, general works? No. Philosophy and psychology? No. Definitely not religion. Social sciences? What is that? That's kind of broad. I don't really know what social sciences means. I've got language, science, technology, arts and recreation, literature. It won't go in any of those. So I'm going to see about social sciences. That's in the 300s. So I'm going to click on that. Maybe some of you are social science teachers and teach a section on the Constitution, and you would have said right away, that goes in social sciences. Okay, so we've got statistics. The first class, subclass, is always going to be a very general class. So I usually ignore that unless I have a book about sociology or anthropology. So I want to get more specific. Statistics, political science, maybe. Economics, law. Well, the Constitution is our main law. Public administration, social problems, education, commerce, customs. Okay, I'm debating between political science and law. So I'm going to click on political science, see what that's all about. And it's talking about systems of government, civil and political rights, political process. What are systems of government and states? Well, we have a democratic government. Republics, monarchy. This is talking more about the government than about the Constitution. So I'm going to go back one more to let's see, civil and political rights, because doesn't the Constitution give us our rights? Well, the Bill of Rights gives us our rights. We have civil rights in the United States, but not real thrilled with this either. So let's go back to social sciences. Let's go to law, because I know that our Constitution is the main law. Oh, we have one, 342, Constitutional and Administrative Law. Now, usually 342 is used for copies of laws, the actual laws themselves. So I'm not real thrilled about this number, but along with the laws, oh, here we go, Constitutional Law, United States. Along with the law are also books about the laws. So let's take a look at this. Oh, look, we have a number for the Constitution. So if we actually had the Constitution, we could put it in 342.7302. Let's click on that. Constitutional History, United States. So we could potentially put it in 342.73029 for Constitutional History, United States. And I think clicking on that doesn't get us, it just gets us that. All right, well, you know, it could be argued that it's not really about the constitutional history of the United States, but it is about the Constitution. I'd like it to sit next to the Constitution itself, and that seems to be, you know, a good place to put it. So that would be my Dewey, 342.73029. So that's what I'll put, 342.73029. And did you notice that our history of the United States was 973? There's a common theme. Remember, there's mnemonics that Dewey uses, and so the 73 often stands for the United States. Now, I asked you to do a call number. And when you do a call number, the Dewey number is the classification number. A call number consists of the Dewey number along with the cutter. So we need to add a cutter. Cutter is not included in second level cataloging, but I did ask for a call number, so I do want a cutter. And I gave you a link to the cataloging calculator. Oops. I should erase that. Okay, the cataloging calculator. Now, this is kind of challenging, and this one acts kind of funky on my computer. I don't know if it's because I've got this opened in Windows Explorer or what, but you can't, if you just start typing, it's going to say no matches found. That's very frustrating. Believe me, I know. And the reason why is because you haven't selected what you want it to search. Well, it's searching. It's actually defaulted to mark variable fields. And as you'll learn in our next session, mark variable fields are 3-digit. So it took my 3 digits and it said nothing. So we actually want it to search for the LC cutter over here. So you have to select LC cutter. And I have 2. I'm doing this by main entry. Remember, the cutter is for the main entry, which is Wilson. See, and this one, it makes me click every time for every letter. Okay, Wilson. This is the number for Wilson. Now, am I going to use that whole number? No, I'm not, because my spine label is only so long. People can only remember so many lengths of numbers, which is why this Dewey number, it may be a little too long for your library. You may want to just cut off the 029 part and put it in 342.73. I'm definitely not going to use the full cutter that's given to me. I'm going to cut it off at the second number, so a total of 3 digits for the cutter, the first part of the cutter. I could have extended it depending on how many works I have in that area. 342.73 W55. If I've got a lot of books on that, I may want to add another cutter just to be able to give them their unique numbers. But I'm just going to go with W557 or W55. Okay, whoops, I lost my. Okay, so the cutter is going to be W55. Now, I didn't ask for this, but I will explain work marks because somebody asked. Melanie asked. Thank you, Melanie. And I'm going to go back to my slides on that. Let's see. Slide number 17. Okay, so the work mark. And the work mark is also called the title mark. It is simply a letter, lowercase letter, that will differentiate this work. Remember, when I talk about work, let's remember back to RDA, the work, expression, manifestation, and item. We're separating this work from other works that are by the same person, because the cutter is for the author. So if that author wrote a lot of things on the Constitution of the United States, we will want to be able to separate out all of Mr. Wilson's books, have their own unique call number if that's what you want to do in your collection. So we're going to differentiate the works by the same author. And you use the initial letter or letters of the title of the work. So in this case, the title is America's Constitution. Now the reason I say letter or letters is because I'm going to show you this example. This is the example of a call number with a work mark. Okay, so our example is Harry Potter and the. So Rowling wrote 5, 6, 7 books. Sorry, don't know them all. In the Harry Potter series. And she started all of them with the title Harry Potter and the whatever, Sorcerer's Stone, Philosopher's Stone, Order of Phoenix, Goblet of Fire. So we could, if we were doing Rowling, R69 is her cutter, and we want to differentiate these. If we just went with Harry Potter, we'd have HHH. Not helpful. Not helpful if somebody was trying to find the Philosopher's Stone. So we can choose to ignore Harry Potter and the, and go with what the letter of the next part of it was, which is what I've done here. So the O, the work mark O, comes from the first letter of Order of Phoenix. The work mark P comes from the first letter of Philosopher's Stone. The work mark G comes from the first letter of the Goblet of Fire. Now I could choose to, oh, that's interesting. I'm not going to do that. I could choose to still use the H for Harry Potter and decide I'm going to use the H for Harry Potter because Rowling is also writing other things that are not Harry Potter, and I want to keep all the Harry Potters together. And if I don't use the H for Harry Potter, it's going to start getting separated by just the work mark for the beginning of the order, you know, the next part of the title. So I could use an H and then add the O. So this could be R69HO, R69HP, R69HG, and that would keep all the Harry Potter books together and not let any of our other works come between them. So that's why I say initial letter or letters, just depending on what you've got and who you've got written. Oh, and we don't need that. All right. Hopefully that explains the work mark. Now I'm going to do that for our work here. We've got the Dewey Call number for the Constitution of the United States, the cutter for Wilson, W55, and I'm going to put a work mark for America's Constitution, which is going to be A. Now if your title started with A, N, or the, all of those always drop out. We never index by them because there'd just be too many that are indexed by A, N, or the. We drop those out and we would start with, so for instance, say it said the America's Constitution, which doesn't make grammatical sense, but we're just going to say that for now, the America's Constitution. We wouldn't use T for the, we would use A for America's, and that's what we've done here. Now the last part of the call number you could choose to add would be the date, and in this case we're going to use our second edition date of 2005, and that could be our entire call number, or you could choose not to add the date if you would like to. I like to add the date so people, when they're browsing the shelves, have an idea of the currency of the book. So that's what I was asking from you for this assignment. I hope that this has been helpful to be able to go out and do those for the next, the other two. You know, I'd like you to go and do the second example that I've just done and try to walk through that yourself. I think now that you know what I've done, that would help you if you were to actually sit down and do it and think about it. This is the hardest one of those examples. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, again, email me. Please email me. Now, I say that, but I do recognize that I'm going out of town for the Easter weekend, so I'm not sure how much I'll be able to access. But I will be checking in every day at least. But Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I would like this resubmitted by 11:59 p.m. on Saturday, no later. Otherwise, it's late and you won't get any. Well, I will default to the previous score that you got. If you want to improve your score, and I highly recommend that you all do that. Besides, we're going to use this assignment for next week's assignment, so you really do need to improve the work that you've done. But get it into me no later than 11:59, April 19th. So I'll be trying to check my email, trying to get back to you as quickly as I can in the next couple days. And you know, like I said, don't hesitate to ask questions. It was interesting to see how much difficulty everybody had, but not one single person. No, one person did actually emailed me early and said, I'm not quite sure if I've done this right. And I looked at the work and I gave feedback. We don't have in-class time. I can't answer your questions now. So email is the only way I can answer your questions. I don't want you to sit out there struggling on your own, trying to figure it out. I know some of you went to Ask Librarians and other people to help, but really, I'm your teacher. You should come and ask me. I can help. I can help, and I'm more than willing to help. So I want you to know this. I want you to learn it. I don't want to make this insurmountable for you. So please email me, ask for help. I will be at work tomorrow, so if you can call me and you want to talk on the phone, feel free to call me. I'll be here 8 to 4:30, 8 to 5. I might have some meetings, so leave your number and I'll call you back if I'm not in. Yeah, if you feel like talking on the phone is easier, but I won't be in on Thursday or Friday, but I'll be checking my email. All right. I hope this has been helpful, and we will talk later.